Okay, Maariv L'Simcha. There is a theme of Chag HaSukkot, many themes. One particular theme which is very central to much of the observance, to just about all of the mitzvot that we have on this Chag, which I want to talk about. And maybe the way to begin talking about it is from the end. In a few days, we'll reach the end of Sukkot. Afterwards, we have Shmini Atzeret, which on the one hand is part of Chag HaSukkot, on the other hand is its own festival. But nonetheless, Chazal give us this imagery related to why we have Shmini Atzeret and related to Chag HaSukkot itself, is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, as it were, Kasher alai preidatchem. It's hard for us to part. It's hard to say goodbye. We've been together throughout this Chag, throughout the 7 days of Chag HaSukkot, together in the Sukkah. And Hashem says, I don't want you to leave. So stay with me for another day. Stay with me for another day. That's the day of Shmini Atzeret, Simchat Torah. 1 day in Israel, 2 days in Chutz La'aretz. Kasher alai preidatchem. It's difficult for us to leave. The question is, it's always very strange, this idea of Kasher alai preidatchem. First of all, what difference is 1 extra day going to make? At the end of the day, you're going to have to leave. You have to leave. 1 day, 2 days. In some ways, having that extra day only makes it harder to say goodbye. Second of all, what is it about Chag HaSukkot specifically that we say Kasher alai preidatchem? We don't find that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says Kasher alai preidatchem after Pesach. It doesn't say Kasher alai preidatchem after Shavuot. And you'll tell me, well, Sukkot is not just Sukkot. The whole thing starts with Rosh Hashanah. We've had the whole month together. Okay. So actually, if we look at the units of time of the festivals, we have a much longer unit of time, which is going from Pesach all the way to Shavuot. Right? Shavuot itself doesn't have an independent date. In some ways, it's not an independent festival. It comes 50 days after Pesach. The Ramban writes in Parshat Emor, long Ramban, where he talks about the idea of all the days of Sfirat HaOmer being a sort of a Chol HaMoed in a sense, between Pesach and Shavuot. There you have 58 days together. Why don't we say over there, Kasher alai preidatchem? Something unique. Something unique to Sukkot that we don't have any other Chagim. And maybe the idea is this, maybe part of the idea is as follows. If we listen to those words very, very carefully, it doesn't say that Hashem says, Kasher alai preidatchem. It doesn't say our separation is difficult for me. It says, Kasher alai preidatchem. What is hard for me is your separation. The fact that you separate from each other. You think about, we have the mitzvah of lulav. We think about, Mishnah Gemara talks about a lulav, a nifrudu alav, right, where the leaves separate from each other. And there is this theme, this underlying theme of unity, this theme of achdut, this theme of coming together. I mentioned it many times regarding Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, but especially throughout, we see this idea of all of Am Yisrael, all of Klal Yisrael coming together again. We've had the privilege this year to see it. You walk out into the streets of Yerushalayim, people coming from all over. In a sense, you have it through all the Moadim. The idea of Yerushalayim, of bringing people together. But we have this idea, Yom Kippur, we started, all of Am Yisrael together. It's not enough, one part of us. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, it's so nice to have you all together. Like a parent says to the children, the children all come together for the Chag. It's wonderful. And afterwards, the day after, everybody goes back home, everybody gets back to normal. This one won't talk to that one, this one won't, won't speak to that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Kasher alai preidatchem. You've managed to come together. You did it for Rosh Hashanah, you did it for Yom Kippur, you did it for Sukkot, do it for one more day. Right? This year, we have elections 2 weeks after Sukkot. We don't have a chance. But it says, just a little bit longer, stay together. What I dread is the fact that you start to liparate, to start to separate. Stay together as we can. Maybe that's the idea. And we see this idea, this theme, runs throughout all the mitzvot of Sukkot. Right? The Arba Minim, the most classic example. We know, and we've spoken about on the first night of Sukkot, those who were here, we spoke at length, some of the messages of the Arba Minim, but the central one is, Chazal tell us, these 4 minim represent 4 different types of people, 4 different types of Jew, They all have to come together to give atonement for one another. Any one of them missing, it's not good enough. You have therefore many people spend, hours and hours. People spend hundreds of shekels, whatever it is, on the etrog. You can have the most beautiful, mehudar etrog, the most expensive etrog in the world. But if you don't have the aravot, which are worth almost nothing, this year they're worth a little bit more because they're already withering and they're in high demand. But nonetheless, without the aravah, the etrog is completely meaningless. Same thing for the lulav, same thing for the hadas, same thing for all of them. So the Khatam Sofer asks this question. He says, you have, generally speaking, something which is more significant we hold in the right hand side. Why is it? We take the arba minim, we take the lulav together with the other minim in the right hand, and you take the etrog in the left hand. The etrog is the most majestic, the most expensive, the most mehudar. The word hadar comes from, is mentioned in connection with the etrog. Why don't we hold it in that hand? He says, because that's just one min by itself. But you've got all three. The beauty, the power here is in coming together as a tzibur, not just in being one individual. You find this idea through the mitzvah of sukkah itself as well. Find expressions in Chazal from the psukim, through the midrashim, the concept of all of Am Yisrael coming together in one sukkah. The idea of the sukkah being a sukkah shalem, a sukkah of peace, of bringing us together. The sukkah, which represents the ananah kavod, we spoke yesterday about the three miracles in the midbar. Keneged the three leaders of Am Yisrael, the ananah kavod, in the schut of Aaron HaKohen. Not by coincidence. Who represents unity, peace amongst people more than Aaron HaKohen? Ohev shalom, Rodev shalom, the lengths that he would go to, the things that he would do to bring people together. And so therefore, Kadosh Baruch Hu says, you see this throughout. You see this through the sukkah, you see it through the Arba Minim, you see it throughout the festival. All the mitzvot, it's about being together, being one people, and not so fast before we go back to business as usual, unfortunately. There's another mitzvah which we have, which of course ties in very, very much to this theme. A mitzvah related to Chag HaSukkot, but not just to Chag HaSukkot, related of course to the Shemitah as well, which is the mitzvah of Hakel, which is very nice. Gather together all the people. Hakel, which happens once every 7 years on Motzei Shnat HaShemitah. Very interestingly, the way the Gemara phrases it, the way the Torah phrases it, is that it tells me Ket Sheva Shanim b'Moed Shnat HaShemitah, right? In the time of the Shemitah. I thought the Shemitah was finished. I thought it was over. We all, everybody came, signed the protocol before Rosh Hashanah. But now on Sukkot, which is after the Shnat HaShemitah, in a sense, this is called Moed Shnat HaShemitah, because in a sense, the purpose, the fulfillment of many of the aims of the mitzvah of Shemitah are achieved now, and are achieved through this idea of Hakel, through this process. So Hakel is everybody comes together, literally. You have the men, the women, the children, everybody comes to the Beit HaMikdash. You have the king reading to them from the Sefer Torah, and there is, in a sense, a reenactment of what took place at Har Sinai. There's an element of limud Torah about this experience, element of learning, but there's an element as well of reenacting, of standing at Sinai again and entering that Brit. Why does it have to be on Sukkot, and why does it have to be after Shnat HaShemitah? So just very briefly, in terms of after the Shemitah, a number of Mefarshim write, the Chizkuni, Abarbanel, and others, say that Sukkot, we know it's Chag HaAsif. This is the time when you're gathering in the fruits, gathering in the harvest into one's home. During the Shemitah year, there was no the land lay fallow. You weren't doing anything. There's nothing to gather. So they say, well, people have got the time. This is the time when people are free, when people are going to be pnuyim, available, are going to come. Instead of doing that Chag HaAsif, which would normally take place, this is the time. Come and learn Torah. Come and have this experience. And maybe on a technical level, Meshech Chochmah takes it one step further. It's a beautiful insight. It says it's not just about the fact that technically you have the time. It's about the fact that your mind and your heart is open and is able to hear these words, is able to have this experience. We know that in Mitzrayim, when Moshe Rabbeinu, the first time he comes to the people and he comes to tell them what Hashem says. It says, Lo shamu mikotzer ruach me'avodah kasha. You couldn't hear it because of shortness of spirit, because of hard labor, hard work, whatever it is. When we are people are preoccupied, when people are so busy, people are just exhausted with the things they have to do, the work, their mind is in a certain place. They're unable to focus. They're unable to be free, it's not about the fact that now you have to spend the time doing something else. It's where is your mind and where is your heart and where is your soul? At the end of the Shemitah year, unlike any other time, having spent an entire year, hopefully, engaged in Limud Torah, engaged in strengthening one's emunah, engaged in all these ideas, and you have time to think, you're able to internalize these concepts better than any other time. That is the time to have this the ceremony and to have this idea of Hakel. And something very interesting, the way that the Torah writes. So in the psukim that describe the Hakel to us, it says as follows. We read them a few weeks ago. All of Am Yisrael is coming to the Beit HaMikdash. Tikrat HaTorah hazot neged kol Yisrael boznei. You'll read this Torah to all of Am Yisrael in their ears. Hakel et ha'am anashim ba'ataf v'gelcha asher b'shareich halaman yishma'u laman yilmadu v'yalu et Hashem Elokechem shamur la'asot et kol divrei haTorah hazot. Okay, then it says Hakel, meaning gather together the people, men, women, children, everybody, in order they should hear, in order they should learn, in order they should fear. You notice the order here in the psukim is backwards. It should say first, Hakel et ha'am, gather the people together and read the Torah. Again, what does it say? It says, Tikra et HaTorah azot, read this Torah to them, and then it says, gather the people. When are you going to read it? After you've done Hakel. So again, in Sichot of Rosh Hashiva, Rav Adari Zatzal, he quotes, he brings from a number of the Hasidic masters. And Ma'ov Shemesh writes that this is the idea, that when the Torah tells us, Tikra et HaTorah azot, teach this Torah. What is the Torah that you have to teach? What is the Torah that the people have to know? It's Hakel. You come together. You come together as one. And this is ultimately, could there be any more fitting message? When we stood at Har Sinai, this is a reenactment of receiving the Torah. The only way, the precondition for receiving the Torah at that point was Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Hahar. Ke'ish echad belev echad, as one people. So relearn that, reenact that. This idea of Hakel is not just about the fact that you're going to read the Torah, what you're going to learn and what you're going to have. There's an overarching message as well beyond that of the Hakel, the etzem, the idea of gathering together, of being one people, of not so fast before we get to that kasha alai. I'll just add one more thing and this will conclude. The Sfat Emet adds, he says this is why it has to be done on Motzei Shemitah. What you think about the mitzvot of Shemitah, again, they emphasize this message more than anything else. Whether it's Shmitat HaKarka, meaning there's no one person who owns land over somebody else. Right? All class distinctions completely fall away. Everybody's in the same boat. You get right to the end of the year and you get Shmitat Ksafim. Prosperous, not prosperous, whatever. But the idea behind it is that there's nobody who owes something to anybody else. Everybody is on a completely equal footing. We're all one people. At that point, we have reinforced that message. At that point, we're open to hear the message again of Hakel, and to reenact and to continue this Brit for as long as we can. Rabbi Hanania ben Akash Amar Zakar Baruch Hu Zakot Yisrael Lefnach Balem Torah Mitzvot Shnamar Danay Chafetz Man Tziko Yagdil Torah V'Yadil.